This is Infection, the survival podcast recorded live on Tuesday, March 26th, 2019. Episode 219. Look at that. 1919. Here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. Of course, our website is infectionpodcast.com. You know, Brian, I got real screwed up there with the 1919 thing. I mean, that would have been a real problem.
But you always seem to make it through.
Yeah,
at least through the intro.
Yeah.
What's that?
You know what I didn't say, though? That Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. We bring you the latest news, reviews, updates, and more each and every week. I'm all over the place. I don't know what my problem is.
Hey, it's just one of those shows.
Yeah, well, you know, it's fine. You've been sick for 7 months, so I think, it's finally, it's my turn to...
Yep. It's a different kind of sick.
Yeah,
I just didn't feel well.
Yeah, I'm just screwed.
Anyways, if you want to find me, you can find me at Boise Computer on Twitter. Check out my blog, biteoftech.com. And of course, our website, infectionpodcast.com, where if you look on there in the upper right-hand side, we have a join our Discord, which is a link that will get you right to the server. You can use a mobile app to use it. You can use a web-based app if you don't want to install a program on your computer, or they have a really easy-to-use desktop program. Throughout the week there, we have a news channel, so if you want to suggest topics that we could cover during the show, that's the perfect place to do that. We also have our Steam group, which usually works, but we could send out a notification today because Steam likes to do maintenance right now. So I missed my window of opportunity. So maybe you didn't see a notification today, but usually you will. If you'd like that notification, just click join our Steam group. We have our YouTube channel, our audio only formats. And also for every single episode, Nick does a post that has some fancy art that he does for it, as well as all the notes with links for videos, different articles that we reference. And also we have on there, just every single episode's worth tons of stuff from the beginning H1Z1 days all the way to today.
How many gigabytes does the website take up, Brian? It's like 100 gigabytes worth of data with all the audio.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yes. So you can, of course, check that out. Of course, our website is infectionpodcast.com. If missed any portion of the show or we don't get to any of our news, which has been a reoccurring theme the past couple of weeks, probably will be this week as well, you can still check out the notes for maybe your favorite game on there. Alrighty, Mr.
We'll
Aldridge.
at least have the notes. We'll have the notes on there. I try to put every single patch notes that have happened through the week. So even if we didn't cover it, it should be listed there. So it's a good place to go check out.
All right, what's going on? How you been? What have you been playing this past week?
Okay, so I have been playing some GTA. Not the whole role-playing thing that people are doing, but kind of continuing the story.
Okay.
Of just trying to beat the main story, because I really enjoyed, you know that I really enjoyed Red Dead.
Yeah, of course.
And GTA is a very similar story style, and I know that I got to be close to the end of finishing the story. So just a little bit here and there, I've been playing that throughout the week. Also, but I played a little bit earlier in the week a game called Outlaws that we might talk a little bit about. Well, it's hard to say if we'll talk about it today just because of how much notes we have. But with Donnie, and I think I mentioned that last week, that game that I'd gotten.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much it.
I got shamed by our friend UGX Vibe into playing Apex with one of his buddies earlier this week. I don't remember when this was. Maybe this was Saturday, I think. It just kept inviting. I have Origin open. He just kept inviting me, and then he started Discord messaging me, and I was like, all right, fine. So we played Apex for a little while, and I'll tell you, Brian, it's the same. We've talked about this before. Games like PUBG and H1Z1 King of the Kill, Z1 Battle Royale, whatever the hell they're calling it now. I have no chance in those games. It's like you're in there and you're dead instantly. Even though I haven't touched Apex Legends in at least a month, just haven't played it. Still able to carry my own weight. At least attempt to carry my own weight. I was able to get some kills. I was targeting people. I was hitting them. I was hitting shots. I don't know why I feel like I'm just getting constantly out. It's because I don't play, obviously, is why I get outplayed in PUBG. But it's not even like I'm on the same playing field as these people. Like I might as well not even have a gun.
Yeah, Well, I think a lot of it with the other games, they give you some outs. They give you some opportunities to kind of recover in Apex that they don't give you in games like H1Z1 or Z1 Battle Royale now. And so pretty much when you're down in Z1, you're down.
Yep.
And you just sit there and either you exit the game or you watch your friends play for the rest of the match. And I think that games like this, they go through and even if you're down, like there's still an opportunity that you'll get back into the game. And it probably makes you not worry about it so much. Plus, they take more shots to down you, which is a big difference. Because if you look at H1Z1, I mean, look at how many shots we get two tapped.
Yeah,
I
constant.
mean, that's very easy to do in H1Z1. And somehow magically it seems to happen when we're wearing helmets and everything else. You know, we're getting killed with one shot to the head. But I think that might be something else.
So I played Apex this week, had a good time with it. I unfortunately had to meet somebody for dinner, so I had to pop out after, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half we played.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I had a good time, and I actually, I was gonna jump back into it the other day, and just something else came up. But yeah, I jumped back into Apex, and I had a good time. I was still able to hold my own, which is my scale of is this game playable for most people? If I'm just getting the floor's getting waxed with me, then probably not.
So one thing that I heard a report that Dr. Disrespect, he quit playing it, I guess.
Okay.
And said that he felt like it was boring compared to games. He said that he found PUBG and games like that more interesting.
I know the answer.
Do you know why is that?
I can tell you why, because I feel I don't have the best information, but I'll just give you my opinion on it.
Okay.
In a game like Apex and Fortnite, even the best players can get killed by an awful player. And it can happen on a semi-regular basis. In games like PUBG and H1Z1 and or even ROE to some extent, if you are a Blackout for sure, if you are a dominant player like Shroud, Dr. Disrespect, Summit, any of these guys, if you're a dominant player, you'll have 15 or 20 kills a game. Now you can do that in Apex Legends, don't get me wrong, but the plays casually every couple of weekends has a chance of killing you because of just because of how the game plays. It's just a different play style. So yeah, of course it's boring, Brian, when you're not getting 70 kills in a 100-man lobby.
And you know how he'll tend to, if someone kills him, he'll rage quit. So I think that he ends up doing that more with this game, just because someone will kill him. And usually, one thing that I haven't seen in this is people saying, "Oh, well, you know, that's a stream sniper." There's been less of that. Where in H1 or where in Fortnite, you know, if a streamer gets killed, it's always because of a stream sniper, is what they claim. It's like, oh, he couldn't have killed me. The fact they came in here and did these moves and then killed me, he was a stream sniper. And I haven't heard that complaint so far, really done by streamers with Apex. So maybe it's just because of the way that the game plays and it's more difficult to find people. It's not such an open, like people are moving around the map so rapidly like they do in Fortnite.
It's just such a different game. And well, actually, that's not true. It's not that it's such a different game. It plays in such a different manner than the more simulator type games, which I'll call PUBG is more of a simulator type game, when Apex and Fortnite are more arcadey. And I mean, I have killed players in Apex that are way higher level than me, just so much better players, higher levels, more kills, whatever. They're just better players. I just got lucky. But I feel like you can.
Do you think that's going to change over time, or do you think the game's
been out long
actually
enough.
Different enough?
I mean, the game has been out long enough that I think
people have gotten down the shots.
Absolutely. And I still will get my ass handed to me. Let's not miss that fact. But I feel like I have a fair opportunity in a gunfight. And from the little bit of H1Z when I played a couple weeks ago, and from the PUBG that I played however long ago, I never felt like I was in a fair gunfight. Not that they were cheating, they're just so much better than me that I didn't have a chance. But in Apex, with all the jumping around and the climbing and the grenades and just the difference in what guns do with damage and shotguns close range. I mean, I can rush a building with that wingman, which is the which is the pistol that shoots the light ammo. And if I get lucky and hit you in the head, I'm probably going to shoot you twice and you're going to be dead. I just don't feel like that happens in H1Z1 and PUBG.
Well, and I think that the variation in the weapons is part of what builds that, where in PUBG you got certain guns and every player was generally the same by the end of the game. In this, having the different classes and everything, and you have different
skills,
abilities.
Of course.
I think that it gives you different ways to get out of combat that PUBG didn't have. And so if you didn't want to die, you could retreat enough. I mean, we found this in H1Z1 too. I mean, when you got into a fight, someone was going to be dead before the end of the fight. There was no getting out unless you happen to have ducked behind something very luckily that's close. Pretty much, if you guys are close enough, one of the groups is going to die. And that's just how it worked every single time. And I think with this one, they give you enough ways to get out of combat, to duck out of the fight, to where I think it creates a different game.
I would say that's pretty accurate. Pretty accurate account of everything and what's going on in there. Before we get any further, I do want to thank a few people for coming in with some Twitch subscriptions. I want to thank our friend Saul Greatman, Johnny Find, and then Judd, who just hit us with the resubscription here as we started the program. So he's been subscribed for 10 months. So thanks to Judd for that, and everybody else. Hopefully it will fund our trip out to PAX West here coming up in 6 months or so somewhere around
about that 5 or 6 months.
5-6 months. I think PAX East is next week. I think, or maybe it's this weekend.
I think they're it's got to be like right now.
Yeah, I think it's this weekend. It'll be this probably Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we'll hopefully next week's program we'll have some I don't know what you call it. There's not really news at PAX East and PAX West, but you do see you may see games that don't exist. I mean, that's what you might get.
We might see some video footage of a game that they finally are announcing at PAX, or letting people see it and maybe record some screen from it. So hopefully we'll see some new games that haven't quite been announced yet, and then if we can, show those on the show next week.
Yeah, if you know anybody that's going to PAX East that would like to do some undercover work for us, let us know. Or same thing, if you see a game at PAX East on Twitter next week, don't assume we've seen it. Throw it in our Discord news channel, because I'm sure there will be maybe there'll be a Darwin Project similar style game that will pop up there like it did in 2017. All right, Brian, we've got a lot of news to get into. First of all, our game of the week was, what did we play? Oh, we played, what did we play? I'm totally drawing a blank. Oh, we played Conan. We played Conan Exiles.
Yeah, we played Conan. Yeah. We played for like...
I played for a long time. I played for almost 2 hours. Just because you were busy gallivanting. I mean, so we played Conan Exiles.
I played for a little bit. Yeah. I got out there and I leveled up some and then
logged off of my base. Yeah, okay.
Pretty much is it.
So we played some Conan Exiles the past week. Didn't really have a chance to get to any of the end game stuff, but as always with Conan Exiles, I feel like I can play it alone and have a decent chance, which is not something that you get with.
And we have some mods on there to help with that process as well, so people actually can try some of the content. So the server's still up. So if you want to play, join our Discord server, and then in the servers channel, there's a description of how to get in there.
Yeah, so it's Conan Exiles. They're kind of, I don't want to say they're done, because that's maybe, you should buy it if you're looking for, if you liked an Arc style game. When I say it's done, I mean it's
fairly
polished.
Complete. I mean, it may get some cosmetic things, but it's feature complete, I think is.
And they've got 3 or 4 big DLC packs. They've got like an Eastern Asian pack, like a medieval Rome pack, and then a jungle pack or something like that. They've got
if one thing that you really liked about Ark was the building, then this is probably the next best thing for you. If you maybe don't want the crazy PvP that's Rust, then this would be kind of the next step from Arc of something that actually has better looking base building. If one of those people who just likes to do massive builds and make really cool looking bases, Conan is really good for that.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of different building parts and variations of each building part with different themes. So you can make some, and you can build. They've made it really flexible to where you can build. One guy built on the bottom of a cliff, so it's actually his base is
Upside
off
down.
of the bottom of the cliff. I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, they do some really cool stuff in there. So if you're looking for a game, add it to your Steam wish list, and they run sales whenever Steam does their sale. They're typically always on sale, so you can go ahead and check that out. Conan Exiles. So I was supposed to be out of town last week, and my plans changed. So I was there for Game of the Week, but I will be out of town this week, Brian. So it's ball is in your court. What do you want to play?
Well, but I might not be here. So
Oh my God.
let's do a casual Game of the Week.
What about Apex?
Yeah, I mean, we can have people play that. I don't think I'll be here at home to do it.
Well, that's fine. I think
so
we'll throw UGX Vibe under the bus. Bob is gonna host Apex Legends on Friday night, so join him for that. Our Game of the Week is everybody hops in our Discord and plays a game. And we'll be doing that. We'll be doing that Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern in our Discord. You can find the links. All the information is on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. All right, 2.5 pages worth of show notes, Brian, rivaling last week's updates. Where do you want to go? Where shall we start?
Well, let's kind of start with some of the more general news.
Okay.
So one thing that was announced this week is I've heard about this coming up, but there's a little more information about this anti-cheat system called Denuvo.
All right.
And this is by a group called Erdetto is launching this. And one thing that they're trying to do is combat cheating for esports. And this is one of the ones that's going to be based more hardware based. So a lot of the things that you have seen before up to this point would be more of a software based anti-cheat, things that are trying to detect things happening in processes and things like that. So this one, they're really focusing on esports because one thing you'll notice in esports, people will bring in a mouse, which will then load a cheat, and they never really know. It's hard. They have to detect it right at that time and try to prevent it at that time rather than get it afterwards. So on here, they have something that's going to be working with Intel AMD chipsets and one thing that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks was even Microsoft getting a little bit more strict with the way that you interact with the operating system to make it to where you have less ability to actually interact with processes. So this prevents cheaters from manipulating and extracting data or code from the process. And with that code, I mean, you get things like ESP because you're able to find out where players are, even if they're behind a wall or something. And so a lot of the information gathering type cheats they're trying to fight, because that's the ones you tend to see with people that are doing esport type of games, is they won't be as blatant to do something like aimbot, because that probably would be pretty noticeable, especially in a competition.
You think? Yeah.
But there was one that recently there was a guy who was a professional player, and he was streaming on Twitch, and he had a pair of glasses on. And the only way that they knew, they looked at you could watch his video, and he was very good at it, to where he wouldn't let you know. He was very smooth about how he did it, going to a corner and the way that he would act like he didn't know any more than what he was supposed to know. He, in his glasses, you could see the shapes of the players through the walls off the reflection of his glasses. And so they actually used that video on
Wow.
Twitch, and then they banned him from the game. So
would you say he was a smooth criminal?
Yes, he was a very smooth criminal.
Boy, I'm gonna tell you what, you got to have a pair of cojones to stream yourself cheating. I mean, you talk about just like cheating when you're doing your own thing, but you got to have a real set of balls to stream yourself on Twitch running a hack. I mean, that's next level badassery.
Well, and he wanted to be one of those cool, professionally put on the gaming glasses. They weren't even prescription. They were like gaming glasses.
Hey there.
Yeah.
Oh, don't look at the ESP in my screen. I mean, what a,
Yeah, it's
what
like
a dummy.
it's like you're wearing gaming glasses so that you can be extra cool, and then
Gunner
it's
optics.
giving away the fact that you're cheating. Which I mean, that's justice served. But
Huh.
I just thought that was kind of funny. That's what took him down. So with this one thing, doing the hardware level, and here I'm going to read their claim because just like we saw with Google saying our platform is going to have no cheating, right? They say on here combined so that the features offered by Intel and AMD combined with machine learning, so they're going to try to use machine learning with the system
Buzzword.
of in-game agnostic process metrics to ensure no false positives and maximum detection of cheating. So I don't know how they're going to ensure no false positives, but they're claiming that they're going to be able to use this to get it as accurate as possible to where it's not just these mass bans of, oh, this guy, he has this high percentage, let's ban him. Because we've seen, I think it was 500,000 to 800,000. I think they're approaching 1 million bans just in Apex, and it's only been out, less than 2 months?
Yeah, but probably right about, yeah, probably about 2 months.
About that time?
Yeah.
So this one, they're trying to be non-intrusive with this. So hopefully this will be a step up because that's one thing that's kind of gotten stale over the past couple years is anti-cheat. I mean, they are banning a lot of people, but it seems to be the same process of, these people, we found that they were hacking over this week period of time. It wasn't that they're preventing them from hacking, and it's not that, okay, they came in and within 5 minutes they've been blocked from hacking. So
now, Judd is saying if it's the same de novo that is used for anti-piracy, it will be broken. It is. It's the same company.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what
it'll be interesting to see if they actually. We've heard a lot of claims with anti-cheat.
This has been used for a while, though, Brian. This has been used. I'm looking back. This has been used starting in 2014 with a whole bunch of Electronic Arts games, including FIFA 15, which was out September 23rd of 2014. Almost all the EA games are on here. Ubisoft.
I don't think it's been publicly released. So this one's this is like its public release that's now going to be used in esports.
Gotcha. Capcom. Yeah, so this has been used. Let's see. That new Conan game, Conan the Unconquered, that we've talked about, that's apparently going to be using this as their anti-cheat. But it's funny because next to all of them, the games, it says cracked. And almost all of them say yes, except for Star Wars Battlefront, which came out in 2015, and a couple of other ones. Interesting.
So this is the anti-cheat. That might be the DRM type of technology.
Oh, you're right. That probably is the DRM technology.
So one thing on this, they're saying that unlike the other anti-cheats, this one operates on the binary level and not the source code level. And so it actually integrates directly into the product build process. So when they're building the actual release of the game from source code, it's integrating at that point. So it also says it does not interfere with debuggers, instrumentation tools, or profilers, and does not require any kind of API or SDK. So it says less tools for engineers to be able to integrate this into their systems. So we'll see. I mean, these are a lot of promises, but hopefully it actually delivers, because anti-cheat is something that definitely needs to be moved up to something new beyond what they've been doing today. Because obviously it's not working.
Tourist Bus Simulator was in fact cracked, so just keep your eyes out if you see that one floating around the internet. It's not free to play, so be aware of that. All right, well that's good news on the anti-cheat. And you mentioned esports. I will. I just want to mention. I thought it was of note. Overwatch. I'm kind of a media nerd. For people that don't know, I work in broadcast radio in the United States. But this weekend was the first final round. They do 4 Overwatch esports. The Overwatch League does, I think they do 4 periods, I think is what they call them, of esports play. And the final of the first period was this weekend. And those final matches were actually on the ABC network. So for people that don't understand how that works, every market in the United States, TV market, has got an ABC, an NBC, and a CBS and Fox affiliate most of the time. So across every ABC station in the United States, as well as online on Twitch, the Overwatch League was on I think it was 3 to 6 p.m. It was a 3-hour block of the finals. which is, we've seen it before. It's been on like ESPN2, which is a cable channel, but this was, I've got a little antenna here on my TV to watch some sports over the air, and I flipped on my TV, and there you go, watching Overwatch on network television, or not network television, broadcast television. So that's super cool.
Now, one thing also, I have a note I put in here. They're actually building, I think this is the first official esports arena here. That's a dedicated esports arena.
Where are they building?
It's going into South Philly. And so this is going to be a $50 million arena that they're doing that's dedicated purely to esports.
They've got one of these in Vegas at the Luxor Hotel. I stayed there last year for the National Association of Broadcasters show. And they've got the esports arena in at the Luxor in Vegas, which was very cool venue. They had it laid out.
Now, is it a dedicated arena for
Yeah, it's called the esports arena. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, here.
But this is its own separate thing. This is just inside the Luxor Hotel. I mean, not
okay.
that's...
I think this is saying it's his first like standalone arena that's being built, kind of like a hockey rink or a football stadium. This is going to be just for that. Which you got to think this has some special needs for aside from what maybe baseball and whatever, if you want to consider this a sport, which people are starting to do, right? Mm-hmm. This has something different where they need just a huge amount of bandwidth generally, and they have special power needs and setups to where it's usually when they're trying to set up some sort of an esport event in a regular arena, then they have to figure out, well, how are we going to get the internet that we need into this facility?
Well, it's not even that as much as it is the live video aspect of it. You need to have every computer.
All the stuff they're going to stream, and
every computer needs to be sent back as an input to a video router to be switched, to be put on the air. There's a whole lot of video complexity to the show.
Well, in this, they could just set up. I mean, they can set it up to where here's where they sit.
That's what they've got at that esports
connections everywhere.
Well, in that esports arena in Vegas, from when I saw it, it was set up as, I think you rent the space. You're renting all the video equipment, all the computers. You're renting the whole thing. You just bring in essentially maybe your Twitch API key and your graphics, your assets, and throw them into the video system, and bada bing, you're on the air. So that's cool. I mean, it is definitely clear with games like Fortnite, and this Overwatch League is huge. I mean, the fact that they've signed a deal with Disney, which owns ABC and ESPN, to televise these matches on national television on Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 3 to 6 p.m. is huge. I mean, that's when football is on in the United States, during the football season. 3 to 6 p.m. is football time on a Sunday. And to see that on network television is super freaking cool.
Well, and I think the one thing is the capability of having such a more fast-paced game than, baseball, for instance.
Hey,
on this
Thursday's opening day, by the way. Don't hate on baseball.
Yeah. But I was saying baseball is something that is a more slow-paced game. It was good for television because there's a lot of stuff going on the screen. They can flip back and forth. There's no downtime. They can between matches, they can take breaks for advertisers and all stuff. It's very predictable. They can set specific match lengths, and so it's a very good thing to be able to stream over TV because they can match the schedules, have a lot of action on the screen. I think they're treating it to where they can profile the players and just do all the stuff that they do. I think this will be good to where you'll start seeing it, as you said, more on TV, and it will become that mainstream sport that people right now, I think most people don't appreciate it as. It's actually very hard to be a professional in esports.
I asked my father, I said, put on ABC and watch this for a little while. Let me know what you think. And he said, his response to me was, this show is crazy. He said it's super fast paced and they've taken no commercials so far. This is a guy that watches a lot of sports. I was curious on that aspect. And it was quick. 2-minute commercial breaks between rounds, right back into the action. Very quick. They play a bunch of matches. They play 4 full matches. And if you've played Overwatch
and they can get sponsorships and everything to where they don't even really need to do commercial
they didn't.
breaks.
I mean, when the teams were coming out, so like they'd say, oh, and now coming out, the San Francisco Outlaws, I think was the name of that team. So they show the team walking out of the tunnel and they flash like a Sennheiser logo across the screen real quick, and it's up for 15 seconds. So they've got it down.
And And well, these guys aren't wanting a however many $1 million salary per.
Well,
I
there
mean,
is a lot of I don't know if you've been following the Overwatch League as closely as I have. There's a lot of drama within that league. These players are making a good amount of money. There's the people are hopping teams. They're trading players to build.
now they're gonna have to
fresh
start
teams.
setting up all these rules, and they're getting commissions.
Oh,
and
they've
everything
already,
else
oh
for it,
yeah,
so.
no, you're right. That'll be the end of it is when like a state like New York or Las Vegas has their gambling commission, sports commission sanction the event. Then it's all over with.
Yep.
But it was
and then
interesting.
there'll be drugging. We'll have like big scandals for drugging and people taking Ritalin and everything.
We should do that for
else. It'll
podcasts
be
too.
fun.
The podcast we should do that. The podcast license fee.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to mention that was related to esports. Another topic that's been coming up a lot, and we actually talked about this with some other things last week, but more and more cloud streaming services that have been coming up. And so Microsoft, they announced their cloud service called xCloud.
Real original name.
Yes. So in here, they're saying it's energizing times. Microsoft's going to go big at E3 in response to the Google Stadia. And so because Google announced Stadia, which is their cloud streaming service, and now Microsoft, they demoed something that has pretty much connected to your phone on a mount for an Xbox controller. And then you're pretty much playing a game through your phone that is a Microsoft. Now, Microsoft, one thing that they do have going for them is they have the whole Xbox library. They have the PC library. They have their store that already exists, which has some exclusive titles. And so they're probably not having to work quite as hard as Google will be to be able to get names and titles on there.
Well, they've got the relationships with those developers. I mean, anybody that's released a game on Microsoft's got relationships with anybody that's ever published a game on the Xbox platform, at least some type of relationship. So you're right. It makes that, initial contact, break the ice, I'll call it, a little bit easier when it's, hey, I mean, we've pushed through your games in the past. Maybe you weren't fully up on certification, Ubisoft, with this last game, but hey, we'd really want you on this cloud platform. And it makes sense for Microsoft to do this.
But I think, there's kind of a balance to that because Google, one thing they do have is the ability to cater to streamers. I mean, if they go big and offer some sort of incentive to streamers,
to YouTube
just like
Live,
we've been seeing on Twitch, where all these streamers are getting offered a bunch of money to stream games. Well, you want to know who's not getting a cut of that money is Twitch. So people are using Twitch's platform to make a bunch of money. And there's nothing that they actually have to, other than the subscriptions and things that are happening on the side with Twitch and streamers. There's huge amounts of money being exchanged that Twitch doesn't have access to. Google, on the other hand, can turn around and say, you know what, we will give you an incentive program, and they can offer tiers to it, and based on your level of influence, they could actually probably get some companies, be the middleman for those companies to be able to get streamers a large amount of money, and guarantee front page access, which they claim they don't do, but whatever,
yeah. And we don't do a podcast.
Yeah. And so I think both of them have strengths. I think both of them have things that they're going to have to work through because Microsoft is going to have, they don't have a good streaming platform.
They do have Mixer. In terms of technically it's a good streaming platform, but nobody uses it.
It's a good platform, but people aren't really using it.
Hey, PH streams exclusively to Mixer. He gets all the viewers over there.
And so that's the thing is this going to make it to where Microsoft has an opportunity actually to build up that service, or is it going to be that Google's going to turn around and dominate it because they have the ability to have direct access to to streamers and people? And so that'll be an interesting fight to kind of see. But this is going to be another thing we've been talking about, exclusives and all this. I think that we will start to see less of the Steam versus Epic versus Battle.net exclusives. I think this is going to be the game streaming exclusives that we're going to start seeing, to where you have to subscribe just like you do on Netflix. We don't seem to complain too much on Netflix when they do it. There's lots of movies and shows that are
hold on,
exclusive to Netflix.
You're right. You're right. We got a lot of news. I don't want to get into that, but they do produce a lot of their own content. I do want to say, like Stranger Things, they're doing it. Like, so there's they do have the exclusive rights to certain shows. I understand that, but the big thing with HBO and Netflix is their, as you'd call them, IPs on or first party developers on the gaming side. It's their own content. I mean, they're making.
Okay, but one thing, if you look at what Amazon is starting to try to do, is that exact thing.
Yeah.
Amazon's trying to do that with, bringing Smedley in. They are producing the games and they want to publish them that way.
That's
I think
a smart way to do it.
Start seeing to where they're actually partnering with these developers and they're being released under, just like Netflix does. They're getting really good directors and things like that, writers, and they're creating these. We may see to where Google is releasing this title just like Amazon's trying to do, or Microsoft is releasing this title, and to where the developer becomes less of the focus where they are right now. Right now, the developers are the focus of every single release.
Yeah.
This may turn to where this is an Apple game, but just like it's a Netflix show, this is an Apple game. This is a Microsoft game. This is, a Google game, to where they're financing pretty much the whole thing to have developers. Now, one thing, Apple actually released something or announced something here this past week, very similar.
They did yesterday.
And they have the Apple Arcade. And Apple Arcade, one thing that I saw differently, actually there's a video, there's talking on the video. I don't know if you want to play that video. And that'll probably help describe it a little bit. But this
obviously people are a little hesitant with Apple jumping into the gaming market, but obviously they have a huge install base. I think they've got the ownership on smartphone share still. They may not anymore. Nevertheless, they've got a whole bunch of smartphones in the wild that people are using. So
I think it's going to be more of curated. I mean, one thing, I was one of the original funders of Overland years ago. And when they did their first, I think 100 that they sold, I was in that 100. And they've never done, this is the first, and this is going to be a subscription service, but they never wanted to sell over a regular store.
Okay.
So they were releasing it on more of the, not quite open source, but those kind of off-brand platforms.
Yeah, like GOG and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was one like
DRM
that.
free. DRM free is what you're talking about.
There's something.io is whatever this one was.
Okay.
It was some really, and the thing is, because they switched to this other one, like I talked to her at PAX and I was like, I don't even know where your game is anymore. I mean, I own it, but I have no, and so she told me where to go and I was actually able to download an update. But with this, the style of the game, and it matches more of a tablet style play because it's kind of that move, block overhead view where you can move to different squares. I think this is going to be more of that artsy. If you look at the focus of most of those games, it was art style. There was not first person shooters. There was not a bunch of action. It was things that would easily play over a tablet that had more of kind of an artistic feel to them. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of the rough indie games on there. I think these are going to be highly curated. And I think the same thing, one thing that we've seen a lot with Epic Store is they are curating games. They're not just taking, like Steam takes whoever. I mean, we've seen some of the junk through Steam. And I think that some of these other markets are saying, here's games that we found that we think will be successful or we think that will be popular, and they're choosing what they host on there. It's not just a sign up and you're going to be accepted.
Yeah. And that's how it should be. I mean, I think we've run into Steam. PH and I actually were having a conversation over last week. There's this guy on Steam, a company on Steam that releases games. All the games are like $2.25, and this is something_RU is the username, and they're selling a game pack that's like $70 that's hundreds of games, and that's the whole thing. And we were talking about it. You have to pay $100 per game to get a game listed on Steam. If you look up, there are games that just exist that like have no installs and no purchases, yet they exist on the platform. And again, you do have to pay. It's like $100 to get.
I actually have. I've paid that $100. I think I have it to where I could post a game on there.
But it's $100 per game, from what I understand, per submission.
I don't remember.
It's not like the Apple
per publisher
program
or whatever.
I think it's per game. I could be wrong. If it's per game, maybe. If it's per publisher, maybe that makes sense. But if it's per game, then that's a little bit of a different story. So I think the curation thing is a good thing. There's so much garbage that exists on the Steam store right now. Games that, again, are selling for 75 cents, permanently on sale.
Yep.
What's going on?
Yep. So that's the thing. We've had now Google, Microsoft, Apple, and then of course Walmart's game streaming service. That it'll be interesting to see where that goes. They're going to be selling their gaming laptops. They're trying to get into gaming, but I don't. It'll be interesting to see if they actually, because I've seen in the past, there's been hardware vendors that were trash, and over time they actually got to where they were respectable. I'm not sure if that's something we're actually going to see with this.
They do have a good line of desktops and laptops called Overpowered that are actually pretty legit.
Yeah.
Unlike CyberPower and iBuyPower stuff.
Right now, we may look at them and say, I don't see them as a serious contender. But I mean, you never know. If
Walmart's got
they have a huge number of people walking through the store. If they can have little cards that sit up there and say, hey, subscribe to our streaming service, you can do it on almost any device. They may get enough people to where they actually are able to compete.
They've got a larger shipping network than Amazon. I mean, Walmart's a massive company. So yeah, I thought that was interesting that they're kind of dipping their toes in that water as well. All right, Brian. Well,
and then once again, it'll come down to the titles. If they can't get those titles,
well, same thing with them. I mean, they sell new releases. I'm sure they have some relationships, I would assume, with publishers where they could, probably use that relationship to benefit them.
Now, one last thing tied to that is Sony has actually announced this past week that they are no longer going to be allowing companies like GameStop to sell PS4 download codes.
That's a bad.
So they're going to be limiting them to hardware versions of the game. They're not allowed to sell any kind of a digital version of a game anymore.
Yeah,
so
bad idea.
I mean, this is going to be GameStop. They're really limited. GameStop already financially is not doing well.
Fudged. It's over.
They are struggling right now, and so this is something that was actually leaked. But starting April 1st, which I mean, it's good that's leaked now because you see all kinds of crazy news on April 1st, and people probably think it's a joke. But I'm assuming this is real, and that it's not some fake memo that's put out there that was supposed to go out on April 1st. But they're going to make it to where
this would be a bad April Fool's joke. Like, hey, we're going to make your company sink even quicker.
Go
than
out of
before.
business. This is hilarious.
Yeah, very funny.
So they're no longer going to be allowing those places to sell codes. They'll only be able to sell disc versions of games.
Gotcha.
Which is a big problem when you look at DLCs and things like that.
Well, I mean, so they say
interesting.
PS4 download codes. Are they also going to stop selling the PlayStation Point codes or those things like the Microsoft points? I wonder if they're going to stop selling that because those are digital codes, right? A PlayStation Plus membership, that's a digital code.
Yeah, and so that's one thing is it'll be interesting to see because this should be happening. I mean, it'll be happening next week.
If they stop selling PlayStation Plus and the PlayStation currency cards, their GameStop is screwed.
Yep.
Because I mean, that's like a big upsell there. It's like you come in to buy a game and you're like, Jesus, my PlayStation Plus subscription is out. Need to let me buy the card while I'm here. So
now, so they are saying that season passes will still be available and virtual currency. So it sounds like they'll allow them to do certain things.
Gotcha.
But you won't be able to buy the actual game on there. So
okay, well, I guess interesting move by Sony. It'll be interesting to see if Nintendo and Microsoft follow suit. I doubt they will, but Nintendo's been very weird. Remember the crossplay thing? Sony's been very weird. They're weird with crossplay. They're just a very odd company, and nobody really knows why. All right, Brian. Well, we're about 50 minutes into the program here, and we've got some survival gaming news as we've spent the first half of almost these. There's been so much outside of survival game news that affects the industry that we've been covering some of that stuff. I was sent a link this week to a Discord server by Shocks, who is a member of our community, a private message that came to me Saturday night. And the name of the Discord group is H1Z1 Just Survive Fan Remake. Of course, being our deep roots to H1Z1, the original H1Z1, the zombie survival version, piqued my interest. So I jumped in here and started chatting with Chris, who is the mastermind behind this project, and it's exactly what it sounds like, Brian. There's one person right now, but obviously there could be a larger team going forward. There's a Chris who's developing this is trying to remake H1Z1 Just Survive. He's got the game downloaded. He's stripping the assets and the models and everything from ForgeLight 2 into Unity. He's exporting the Unity, I think they're called objects, into
OBJ files
into Unreal, and his end goal is to rebuild and remake the original H1Z1, the zombie version of H1Z1, into Unreal and make it so it's a playable game. Now, of course, there are huge legal concerns with this, as Joshua is pointing out. You can't publish, you can't just take somebody's assets, put them in a different engine, and then publish a game. So Chris is talking with some of the members over at, I believe it would be Nat G, who owns the actual Daybreak. I don't believe owns the rights to Just Survive anymore. That would be Nat G that owns them.
I think that they own the rights, but I think they're licensing them to Nat G. So that's the big controversy right now. Is we've heard this excuse from Nat G saying, "Oh, we can't give you Just Survive right now because we're in negotiations, we're in talks with Daybreak about it." Daybreak still owns the rights to it, and supposedly Nat G, and maybe they're not, maybe they're just doing that to appease the the people out there, but they're claiming that they can't legally just release just give you Just Survive.
Yes. So obviously there's some huge legal issues with this project, and Chris, who is the gentleman that's doing this whole thing, has reached out to Daybreak to try to get rights to publish this. And I mean, he's fully aware of this, and he's answered the question multiple times. He's not releasing or giving anything away until he hears back from Daybreak. So as of right now, it's just kind of a concept. But more what I wanted to talk about, Brian, is this something that Daybreak, do you think would even be, whoever the hell owns the rights to the game, is this something that you think Daybreak would even be interested in doing? Or do they have a thought of maybe redoing something themselves?
I don't think that they're going to redo anything. I don't think they're going to. The thing is, they're owned by investors now. And so investors don't really care about what the community thinks. I mean, unless it affects their bottom line. So if they could come up with some way to profit from this, then sure. With this, I know that they have the ability to do this, right? But the thing is they don't want to put the funds in to actually make this happen. If they would have been
When you say do this, you mean remake the game in Unreal?
Yes. I mean, I said this how many years ago now?
Yeah, I know. You're right. 4 years ago. I know.
Broken record. I said.
I know.
I kept saying, just remake the game in Unreal. And so he's showing it's not that hard of a process. I mean, they already made this world was made in a program called World Machine. World Machine is what they used to generate the corrosion in the mountains, to pretty much draw it and shape the world as it is right now. And so they could easily take that export that they made from World Machine and instantly bring that into Unreal. That would give them all the landscape that they currently have. I'm sure they did some hand sculpting after that, but it would have given the original. Then they could turn around and, as he's done, he's gone through and I assume put splines for all the roads, and I'm sure that there's some manual work that he's had to do, to get it to look identical. But all of these buildings are done. What he's done is he's gone into Unity, which has a tool, a plugin to interface with ForgeLight for making what's their other planet? It's for making mods to PlanetSide and maps to PlanetSide. And so you can turn around and just export those because once they're in Unity, you can export them either as an OBJ file or maybe I don't use Unity, but or an FBX file, and that will go directly. OBJ files will even go directly into Unreal, and then you have the asset as it was intended to be. And you can see here, I mean, the buildings look identical. All these things were made not with Forge Light in mind. I mean, they made them in a normal way, and then they imported them into Forge Light to do these. So they have all the assets already. They have all the things. He's having to go through a lot more work to make it look the same than they would have had to. They could have done this at any point. They never wanted to. They wanted to use their own engine. A lot of those developers probably never worked in Unreal.
Mm-hmm.
They've been working on Forge Light for what, 20 years now, almost. Some of them probably 20 years.
Like that.
So honestly, I think they could have done this at any time, and we'd be probably having a very different conversation if they would have done this 2 years ago. Said, hey, we're releasing, because no one cares about the way that you run around. If they got it close, I mean, we see what they're doing with the preseason 3. I always have to hesitate when I say PS3 because I don't want people to think I'm saying a video, console. But with preseason 3, people are like, we want it to feel identical. People want it to feel close. They would be happy if it had. But the thing is, I think with Just Survive, they want it to look better. They want it to feel better. They're not wanting the exact same. But one thing that they did like is the atmosphere and just the general feel of the game. That's what people miss that I don't think another game has replicated yet.
Yeah, well, so that was part of this thing here. Now let's be frank about this, because this is how things work legally. They are not going to just give anybody the rights to this game. It wouldn't make any sense. They've put all the time and the money into it, and they've got another brand, Z1 Battle Royale, that is closely associated. So the likelihood of them just giving rights to this, I would think, are low. I could be proven wrong. But from that,
I mean, they'd be looking at how are we going to make money off of this?
Yeah, because that's the goal. I mean, they're not just going to give up the rights. They've put all the time and the effort into it. And I understand that they've got nothing to gain from Just Survive, but it's their intellectual property. They own it. It is an asset of the company. If the company was to want to sell, or if the group of investors wanted to sell the company, Just Survive would be an asset to that company. Even if they're not doing anything with it, all the intellectual property associated with it is owned by them and isn't therefore worth its value to the company. It's the company's worth. Just Survive is part of that. I mean, they can say how many installs do they have on Just Survive? They have, it doesn't tell me user. They've got between 1 and 2 million owners on Steam.
Yeah.
That's an asset. Oh, excuse me. That's the test server. It's got to be way more than that. Let me see if I can't find
I don't remember what they ended up.
Quick. Let's see what Steam Spy estimates. They've got between 2 and 5 million owners of Just Survive. So that's 2 to 5 million installs that that they have, that people have in their library. So that's worth something to them. So at this point, what we've got is enthusiasm, which you need enthusiasm by Chris and the people he's working with to try to give something back. But on the it's a double-sided coin, Brian. You've also got the enthusiasm of the community. As we're doing this show here live, there's about 400 people in this fan Remake Discord server. And now, of course, you'd say 400 people, is that enough to make any difference? This is kind of
many more than that are doing the Z1BR.
But this is sprouted up in like a week. I mean, this is a very, I'm going to say, a very grassroots thing. I've seen nothing about this, but from Shocks, who I greatly appreciate him sending me this. I haven't even seen it on any of the H1Z1 subreddits. So,
but that's the thing, is he'll want to be very careful. I mean, from a legal standpoint, he will want to be very careful because he is bringing in assets that are not owned by him, right? Legally, if you were wanting to do this for real, what you would do is remake the assets, make them from scratch, looking like assets from the game. I think legally that's the only way that you would get around it. But then you'd have to sit there and model the landscape. I mean, because where they'll get you is having an exact copy. Actually, I was at a convention here this past weekend,
Oh,
and the one of the first things I went to was actually a talk by regarding legal side of game issues.
oh, really?
And generally what they won't get you on is, so they got copyright, they have patents, there's different aspects that you'll get attacked from. And so one thing that he has to worry about is the fact that he is using the actual objects. They can get him on copyright with that, because that's an actual object made by them and owned by them. But if you were to remake it in a similar fashion, they can't get you on copyright because it is not the same object, right? It may look identical, but it's not the same object. Then they try to get you on patent, which they're not going to get you on a patent claim because there's nothing groundbreaking enough about H1Z1, even though at the time it seemed very unique.
Well, it
There's
was
nothing
at the time. It was
enough.
unique, but
But there's nothing now that's groundbreaking enough to where a judge is going to say that's something that they own sole, rights to. And so, I mean, if people are really passionate, if people really, really want to have a new Just Survive, you're going to have to make one from the ground up, with making actual assets, molding, forming your own map, everything. And that's a lot of work. Is it worth it? Because if it's not close enough, the community is going to be like, this isn't the same, and they're going to move on.
well, I want to talk about that because the interesting thing I find here is not necessarily that people are, not necessarily that this project spread up. I do find it interesting. What I find more interesting, Brian, is that people are still, we've been doing the show for 5 years almost. Or we're in our 5th year of doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
People are still looking for a zombie survival game,
a replacement for it.
This game has not been viable since 2016. Would you say that's a good estimation? Probably about 3 years ago from like today.
Yeah.
Early 2016. The game really hasn't been viable. So, I mean, why? Why has a game not come out to feed this user base? It appears that the user base is here on this, again, over the last couple of days, almost 400 people in Discord. Is that worth anything? I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah.
But there's clearly some type. We've got a whole bunch of people in our chat from the Discord here this evening, and they're all hyped up, and they all want this original H1Z1 back. And
but let's look at, there's been a number of zombie survival games that have come out since then.
Yep.
What is so unique about let's call it JS? What's so unique about Just Survive that these other games are not capturing? What are they not getting? Because that's one thing I do notice is those games just don't feel the same to me. Because one thing that was different about, I'll give my perspective what I think is different about it. With Just Survive, it wasn't the zombies. The zombies weren't what drove the game. It was something about the player interactions and the players. And I don't know how much of it was actually how you moved around the map and things like that, but there was just something unique about that to me with the player interactions. And I don't know what the exact thing was, whether it was the way that the map was built, where they kind of drove everybody to one place where you had those interactions. There was something about it that I haven't quite been able to put my finger on to. That's what it was about Just Survive that made me enjoy it so much.
I see something in here, chat, that speaks to me. It says the simplicity.
Yeah.
That is, the game was,
that's what I'm saying. There was something about it that
was just simple. There wasn't,
didn't get bogged down with everything.
Well, now people are saying they like the base building, and PH is pointing out that when base building sucked, and everybody knew that. Everybody admitted that the base building sucked. Guys, I understand you may retrospectively like the base building, but the base building was garbage. It was not good. But the simplicity is something that is interesting. There really wasn't, for example, Brian, we played Conan over the weekend. There's a lot of complexity in Conan. But in H1Z1, Jesus, you could spend 3 hours and just but
that base building that I think that they are talking about is the simplistic base building. They're not talking about the new base building that was the grid system, What they really like was the simple base
Well, that's what it
building
is.
system.
Just simple. The game, there wasn't a million components. You just built the base. You didn't have to build the individual walls and the floors and the roof. I mean, you just built those rooms, right? Those shacks were just prefabs. You had enough resources to build. What were those called? The things that you'd put in storage rooms. What were those called? Those rooms that you'd line your base with. I don't remember what they were called. Storage rooms, shelters. There you go.
Shelters, yep.
So it's just a prefab. You weren't building the doorway, the two side walls, the back wall, the roof, and the floor. It was just enough scrap. Click, you have a shelter. Click, you have the door. Done. So maybe that's what it is. I've never really thought about that. The simplicity. That's something I hadn't thought. We've always been wondering what that was. There it is. Very easy.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference is, first of all, I mean, one thing that was unique about Just Survive was the way that everybody would go to that one town and you'd work your way through the one town. And that was a very unique feeling. You would go there and then you'd go back out to your base and kind of do your own thing. And then you'd go back to that one spot. Not very many other games have really one area where everybody kind of gravitates towards.
You're talking about Pleasant Valley?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that was a huge thing that really made people, because I mean that's one thing that if we wanted to go get into PvP, what would we do? We'd start
go to PV or
Cranberry.
Yeah, PV or Cranberry.
Yeah, and so you had a limited number of areas where PvP was almost guaranteed, and then you also would go in and you wouldn't get bogged down of. It's like, okay, we're gonna go loot, we're gonna get metal, and we could do that as a group and it would work. I think they limited enough to where you had to actually work at getting stuff. Unlike if we look at Ark, one thing Ark does is you have to get a million amounts of whatever to make a base.
Yeah.
A million wood, a million stone, a million metal. I mean, if you're doing a mega base, it ends up being that. Like you didn't have that. And there weren't a ton of different type of objects. I mean, because look at how many we had. There's one shotgun
that never worked.
that worked half the time. There was a limited number of objects even, and we just got a bunch of that same object, but you didn't ever catch us complaining about it. I think we really did like the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
I think that was something that I think that anyone who's tried to do something similar has always overcomplicated it.
So what we've got right now is, again, not a whole lot. And my intent is not, I mean, I like I love the enthusiasm of the project. I've talked with Chris about that. I don't necessarily have super high hopes on it, again, just because of the legal aspect and a company like a big company like Daybreak, letting that go. But what I do think is important here, Brian, is that people are looking for some type of simple, and I think you can maybe use the word simple and casual synonymously.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are looking for a casual survival game. Rust is not a casual survival game. By the way, we have a Rust email we'll get to. But Rust is not a casual survival game. Ark
is the opposite end. I mean, if you look at the concepts are similar between Rust and H1Z1. The concepts are similar, but one is casual and the other is hardcore.
Yeah.
If Rust could figure out how to make their game more casual, which I don't think they can now. I don't think
they want to.
No, but if they could figure out a way to make that game casual, it has similar components to where it could almost be that. But yeah, we have a really good email because Nick asked for an email for people to talk about their experiences in Rust, and we got one that I think pretty clearly details what he enjoys about Rust.
We'll get to that a little bit later on here in the program. Josh was in here from the Zara team, and he's saying that we've had a ton of JS players come to Zara, but that's the thing is I guess there isn't, Brian. There is not a simple. Now you can maybe make the argument that Miscreated has got some of those elements, but we have been unable to determine why.
Too much grind.
Well, no, we've just been unable to determine why Miscreated. I know you say the grind, but I don't really know why. The big reason people don't play it.
Okay, let's take one experience in Just Survive. Let's say in Just Survive, if you're having a gunfight, someone could die, and they'll say, "You know what? I'll be back in just a little bit." I'm running from this town. I'll be there and I'll be back in the fight to try to help you guys make it through this, right?
Yeah.
That was possible in JS.
Yeah.
You cannot do that in Miscreated. Every time you die, you're so far away and it takes you so long that whoever was there is gone. The gunfights don't last like that. You're not working your way through a town chasing somebody and because it's pretty much a 1 or 2 shot game with Miscreated.
Oh, yeah.
The guns will kill somebody, even a pistol will kill somebody in 1 or 2 shots. And so I think that is the difference, is they could go through and in Just Survive, you didn't feel like, oh, half of our group died. All right, well, we might as well fold up and walk away. Like, it was simple enough to where you could get back, maybe loot a pistol or something on the way, maybe get a helmet, and you'd be back in the fight trying to do something, or at least make a bow. Like, you could get in the fight and do something pretty quickly when you could not. Just Miscreated. That's the one thing that really has brought it down, is you cannot do that. There's too much of a process just to get to the point of where you were, or to even get enough gear to make it to where, because they don't have the simple, let's make a quick bow. They make everything a process, and I think that's what's hurt them.
Yeah. Josh was mentioning that Miscreated's PvP is clunky. Agree with that. CryEngine is just bad. For the kind of game, there is an argument to be made there.
Without a huge amount of rework. That's one thing. If you look at Mavericks, they're on CryEngine. They are claiming that they're going to do something right with that, and we've been seeing that they are doing them. There's multiplayer. They've got that mostly down. But I think that there's going to be a big process for them fighting against CryEngine. CryEngine is just not the most friendly game for large multiplayer environments. But I think that is changing. I think it is getting better. It'll be interesting to see if they're actually able to pull it off. Miscreated, I don't think did such a good job of getting multiplayer to work right.
So before we move on here, because we do have a lot of other news to get into, I love the enthusiasm. I love everybody's all hyped up over this. I don't know.
I want to give some quotes that they're saying to really quick. Some of the people with the JS project, they're saying one thing is that it takes 1 hour to make a base, a good base.
That's true.
That's simple. It takes 10 minutes to raid a base, right? We had a big group. We could do it in about 5 with enough explosives. Yeah. But you could go through and let's say, let's say someone took the time to actually make it to where there were multiple doors, there were multiple layers to it. It would take you 10 minutes at least to work through a base and actually blow down all the doors. Yeah, Nick here, he's got some interesting photos of our days.
I gotta go through and find. Let's take.
And the stutter. The everything. Oh, okay, an explosion has happened, and the lag and the stutter of everyone finally catching up to where they were able to move.
Yes.
After that,
this crashed my computer, I'm sure.
Yep.
Fortunately, such garbage.
But and you could work together. We were growing corn and things to make explosives, and there was but it was still simple. Like, we would have people throughout the week kind of making some stuff, and then on, let's say, a Friday night, we'd be like, hey, let's go, and we're gonna go raid all the bases on the server. And we kind of work our way through all the bases. But you know what? It was simple enough for them to rebuild from that they didn't quit.
Yeah.
Where in all these other games, it's so devastating when all your stuff is destroyed. And it happened with us in Ark. Happened to us in Miscreated.
I know.
It would happen to us in Rust. I know it. If we ever even got enough to where we had something worth losing. We did it, but we would lose it much more quickly. That is the difference, is we've always felt like we could rebuild and get back to that point in a reasonable amount of time. And it wasn't so devastating when everything was destroyed.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that's the difference.
I
think that's the key, that if you could get a game that says they let you get back to that point within a day, because it would have taken us months to get that back to that point in Ark.
Yeah, literally months. That's not an exaggeration. Yep. So I think what have we learned here tonight? What have we learned here tonight, Brian? We've learned that there is a group of people that are interested in a game that they don't have to commit their life to. That's the reason I personally have not gotten involved with Rust. From everything I've watched, and again, I will read this email here in a little while. Everything I've read and watched, and I've played Rust a little bit. But it's the same thing with Ark and Conan. I loved playing Conan Friday night, but I don't have time to commit to Conan. And I guess you could say probably the only thing H1Z1 did well was its lack of commitment. Is that you really could be this? It sounds stupid, but you really could be a Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday hands-off player, and then be on the ball Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and be good to go. Maybe
and
that's
also
what it
those
was.
solo players were able to do something. There were people that would run around and do their own thing, and they were actually someone to be reckoned with. To where you don't really see that in other games. Like there's a solo person, oh, don't worry about them.
Rust, you actually
in
can
there,
do that too.
Yeah, Rust does it, but I mean that's, as you said, a really hardcore game. Besides Rust, I haven't really seen other games do that well.
Now, PH is bringing up the fact that they just did an update to the test server client a couple of days ago. No talk whatsoever on what they're doing, but they did an update to the test server.
Yeah, for some reason, there's been, like in the past month, I think there's been 3 separate updates pushed to Steam. Now, whether those are something that are automated, who knows? I don't know why they'd even be touching it at this point. But for some reason, they've been pushing out these updates, and I don't know if it's them turning on some server got turned on somewhere that was an automated build server. I mean, it's hard to say what's happened. And PH is pointing out that it also says there's 10 people in game right now.
It always says
before
there's 8.
Earlier there was like 6 and there was 8.
The servers are down, so you can't play.
I have always said that's probably some bot somewhere. Someone had some sort of a bot that was doing something that it has the client and all it does is launch it, trying to think it's going to get into a game. That's my guess, but who knows? Maybe there's something bigger going on than that.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just interesting to see that there is updates going on to Just Survive. I mean, most likely it's nothing more than maybe them updating privacy policy information that they're by law required to update or whatever it may be.
I mean, it could be something that, yeah, it's hard to say. It could be something that Steam does on your, maybe there's some files or something that they update automatically that touch the date on it and show it as an update. It's hard to say. It could be almost anything.
Exactly. There really is no way to know. So there is a project going on. There'll be a link in our show notes, infectionpodcast.com, to join the Discord server if you're listening to this after the fact. I've been keeping a close eye on it. I'll keep in touch with Chris, who's the lead on it, and when we have more information, we'll pass it along to you. But if you're an old school Just Survive player, there may be hope after all.
Well, or it's at least a place where you can congregate with people that are interested in that same type of game, so that when something does come out, I mean, for example, Zira, it has much of the same feeling as far as running around and looting, shooting type of a simple game. That's the, once the community finds a game that kind of quenches that thirst of what they're looking for, at least if people are staying together, they'll be like, hey, I found this game, try it out. I think that would be one reason, even if they're, because legally that project will probably never be to a point where you will be able to launch that game and run it. He may be able to launch it and fly around the map or do whatever he wants to do with it. But legally, I don't know that he's going to be able to get a point where he can publish something without, I don't know if they would sue, but they probably would.
Oh yeah, they'd have to continue to own the copyright. If they didn't, they could potentially, if you don't enforce your
There's
copyright.
A certain period of, it's 3 years, if I remember correctly.
I'm not sure what it is, but if you prove that you can't, if you prove that you're not interested in enforcing it, you can in fact lose your patent if you have one on it. That's been proven time and time again. So it's an interesting project.
Well, you can no longer pursue them. So that was brought up this weekend. What it is it's, I think, 3 years from the time that you should have known about the infringement.
Okay.
And so the fact that we've talked about it here on this show today is public knowledge.
We are the public. We are the public record.
I mean, just legally, if they didn't do anything about, if they knew it about then and they never did anything about it, the court would look at it and say, it was public knowledge. Here's a place where they should have known about it. That's the date we're basing on, not when they claim to have learned about it.
Yeah.
So just for information.
Yes. So that's it. That's the Z1 possible update. well, it's not an update, but there's a possible Just Survive fan remake. As anything changes, we will let you know. But yeah, if you're interested, hop into the Discord and hang out with some people. There's a whole bunch of conversation going on there.
All right, and also if let's go and do the game giveaway really quick,
Yeah, absolutely.
so that way we can actually have some time. So I'm going to be giving away a copy of Atlas.
Oh my goodness, this is a big one.
Yes. So we'll be giving so if you want to do exclamation point giveaway in chat, and this is going to be a 60-point raffle. Of course, Atlas currently $30 on Steam, and this is pretty much the follow-up to Ark. And it is a huge open world survival pirates game. And so if you don't have a copy of that, make sure you enter for it. But we'll give that away before the end of the show here.
Yes, and if
it says you don't have enough cans in chat, type exclamation point cans. You can see how many you have. This will be about an hour's worth of listening, but if you follow the channel, I think that gives you what, 10 cans?
10 cans, yeah.
So that gives you pretty much 10 minutes worth of listening time.
How about this? If you listen through the rest of the program, you'll probably have enough to get it.
Yeah, if you can't do it right now, make sure that you just hang around a little bit, because you'll get 1 can per minute. So like someone here, they have 55 cans. Here in 5 minutes, they should be able to enter the raffle.
There you go. All right. And if you're not here live, well, you're missing out. You can join us live every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/infection podcast. All right, Mr. Aldridge, on to the trail. I do want to mention something real quickly. I don't know if this is in the notes. I thought may have skipped over it. Funcom just announced a new game. They announced, I don't know if you saw this, they're unveiling a new game. It's a sci-fi horror game called Moons of Madness. And Funcom,
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, they just came out today. So it takes place on Mars, and it's a sci-fi action horror game. Apparently, it's not really survival, but Funcom did such a good job with Conan Exiles that it may be of relevance to some people. So there'll be a link in the show notes. It's infectionpodcast.com. If you want to go and check this out, it is called Moons of Madness, and it's being published by the folks over at Funcom. So check it out.
Cool. All right, very good. So one thing that happened here, I think it was today, but EA, so Electronic Arts, had a decent sized layoff today.
Oh, really?
Yes. So they laid off 4% of their staff. So it's 350 people.
Ouch.
And they currently have, that's of their 9,000 person staff. And so obviously there's some things that are, shaking up that's happening there. They've had some titles that haven't done as well. Just different things that have happened with them. So, you could look at Battlefield, the new Battlefield 5. I think they had less sales than they anticipated on that.
BR mode just came out this week.
Yeah, so maybe that will change. They had the new BR that I saw. I think Dr. Disrespect was playing it today.
He's back playing Apex.
But now he's back playing Apex. So this is something that if this is an indicator of something going on in the company, I don't know. Obviously, maybe they're trimming some fat. That's one thing, is every once in a while in the gaming industry, maybe a certain title, they decided not to do a title that they were going to do. There could be a lot of reasons behind the scenes that maybe a title is not going to be produced anymore that they were going to produce. So they're letting all the people go that were linked to that title, or they may be getting rid of people that are not as important. We've seen that with a number of companies. Sometimes they have to go through and say, hey, we've just picked up all these employees that really aren't needed for the company to run. It is good for them business wise to go through and release those people. Now, you don't usually want to release 4% of your staff in one day, but that's why I'm kind of thinking maybe it's a title that they decided they weren't going to pursue anymore, because it's just 350 people. That's probably for them, that's one of the development teams for maybe a new title.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They didn't really give, for them, they said it was to address our challenges and prepare for the opportunities ahead. That was their official statement. Better deliver on their commitments. refine their organization and meet the needs of our players. I mean, that's a PR statement.
Oh my god, I can't. That's not even comprehensible.
Address our challenges. Whatever those challenges are, is it budget? Whatever their challenges are, but they are laying off some of the people. So,
well, that sucks.
Yeah,
I don't like to hear that.
And that's something that's a month ago that Blizzard laid off 800 people. I mean, they're doing major restructuring there. Maybe this is an anticipation of some of the upcoming, all these changes to the way that game development is being done. I mean, look at all these streaming services. I mean, this could be an anticipation of we may have a harder time keeping relevant because we have our own releasing platforms that we're probably not going to be putting our games on Google. We're not going to be putting them on Amazon. We're not going to be putting them on Apple.
Yeah.
They may find that they're struggling just like the old school video rental places really struggled. And even Redbox lost a lot of people when Netflix came along. Maybe this is an anticipation of we got to make sure we're ready because we may have a drop in sales if people are feeling like, we've talked about this before, spending our money in other areas because people are stretched. There's so many games coming out. We've covered this. I think a lot of people didn't realize it till we had so many games coming out to where people are like, well, I just bought a game for $60. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to buy. I mean, you can't buy every single title. You go broke.
Yeah.
I've tried. It just doesn't work.
Brian's got his 401k invested in his Steam library, and we'll find out. And
all these streaming things. People say that I'm a shill for Epic or whatever, and I want Steam to fail. If anybody has an investment in Steam, this is me. And so I definitely don't want Steam to go under.
When Brian retires in 5 years, when he's that old, he'll have to see what his Steam library worth is, and that'll be the end.
I'll have to sell a whole library at once.
Yeah, cash it out to pay off your mortgage. Hey, Brian, I see that we've got listed in here Mavericks. What's going on with them? We haven't talked about them in a while. But obviously, there's been some ongoing issues with them, and
so they kind of restructured over there as well. I mean, if you look at, I wasn't really happy with how they oversold. Whether they did this on purpose, but they promised. I think people anticipated something different than what they could deliver, and that's just how when you have marketing hyping up something, that's just what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they found, all right, people are expecting a finished game. And I think that that's something that for a while, people were going through and being totally content with all these partly finished games. I mean, look at H1Z1's a perfect example. Very rough. And then a lot of games after that came out and they were just bare bones version of games. But I think with all these major titles coming out that are highly polished now, when people see a game being released, they expect more than just people running around a world. And their first playtest that they did was really nothing more than that. I mean, there was one object pretty much in the middle of the world that everybody could run towards, and it was the most basic. None of the stuff that you would expect to see in a game was there.
Yeah.
And so I think that people then, when these guys, because they're just doing the normal development, the problem is people are being brought into this development. And so people were expecting, okay, this game is going to be 90% done and we're going to play it. And it's going to be the best thing on earth, right? Well, then when people got in there, they realized, oh, this is like 10% done. And like most of the stuff isn't built. And I think these guys, with all their videos and showing supposed gameplay, I think people thought the game is much farther along than it really is. Now, I think there's a lot of stuff they're not showing in those play tests. But I think that that feeling that people got when they got in there, and then said, hey, this is just a big empty open world. I think that for them was very disheartening. And I think it made a lot of people think, hey, this game is a lie and this isn't what we were promised. So what they did is they are now calling that pre-alpha. So everything up to that point is, because remember, we have our alphas, our pre-alphas, our betas, and all this stuff changed with H1Z1. And so now that was pre-alpha. And then they opened up the Forge in November, and then in March they're releasing what they call the Armory. So they've actually broken up each piece into sections now to explain why all this stuff isn't in there, because they haven't done it yet. And so the Forge was just kind of that initial thing. They can't change the name now. But this next one in March to April, they're going to be doing the Armory, where they really focus on weapons, grenades, med kits, all that aspect of the game, that'll be that focus for that period of time. And then in June, they're going to be doing what they call New Horizons, which is going to be the BR aspect of it, of dropping into a game and kind of having more of the PvP aspect of it. Then they'll be doing what they call Thrill Seekers, which is going to be more of probably the vehicles and that type of combat and the moving around the map. And then they're going to be doing, now they don't have a date, so that's coming soon for Thrill Seekers. That'll be towards the end of the year probably. And then at some point after that, they'll be doing the big map. So that'll be what they're calling Brave New World. And then after that, they'll be doing what they call Forge Hall, which is where everybody kind of comes together and they have all of that kind of MMO type of feel to the game. So that is the alpha stage. And then after that, now this is pre-alpha. Take that back.
But I have no idea what you're
Once they do
about.
that,
I've unfortunately I'm not zoning you out. I just have no idea what you're saying.
So all that stuff is pre-alpha. And then they go into alpha, and they haven't announced anything that's in the alpha phase. So this is all the pre-alpha phase.
This game is going to
building all those.
This game is going to be an abysmal failure.
I mean, maybe
it's never going to come out.
So. Okay, I mean, let's talk about that for a minute, because these guys, first of all, they're on a CryEngine.
I mean, they're going to make up a new. Are they going to make up a new term between alpha and beta? I mean, they might. Why don't they just make up a new term?
I think they'll come out, but I think it's going to be the normal 2-year cycle. I mean, these games take 2 years to make.
Then they're irrelevant.
I mean, if you're quick, sometimes the games take more. And so I think that for them, they're probably on track for the 2-year development cycle. Just like, I mean, this is just like Dead Matter. I mean, they went through and said, "Oh, we think we can release a game in 6 months." No, you can't. You can't. I promise you, you can't. If you were if you were very seasoned developers, maybe you could put together a prototype in 6 months and you could put it out there and people could see it. But you know what? These are not all people that have been working. It's not a settled development team that's been working together for the last 10 years like some of these major studios have. It takes time to do all this stuff. And so these guys it's going to take them 2 years to make a game. I think they oversold early to get hype and figure out how much people are interested in it.
Yeah.
Showed all this stuff of look what we can do, look at what we will do, and then you turn around and people will say, "Oh, but you haven't done any of that yet." No, we haven't. Okay, well, get back to me when you've gotten about 60% of that done, and then we'll see. You then consider alpha stage. So I think they're trying to get that 60%. I think they're trying to get that done now. They realize, oh, we don't have anything done. People want to see something real. Well, that's going to be this whole pre-alpha stage, is actually making the bare bones of the game.
Yeah. Well.
So we'll see.
Time will tell, but I just...
okay, here. So someone brought up Chronicles of Lyria. Remember when we talked to them at PAX?
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time you saw anything about that?
Nothing. That's going to be the largest MMO ever.
I mean, we talked to him. I mean, the thing is, he was selling it. He was like, this is going to be the largest MMO ever. It sounded like the most grind ever.
Yeah.
I mean, just from what he was describing. And there is an audience for that. And so I think that is the very similar concept. At least these guys are being open. I mean, Chronicles of Lyria, they post stuff, but no one's playing that game. And they've received huge amounts of money, spent huge amounts of time. That was PAX 2 years ago almost.
Yeah, 2017. Yeah, it'll be 2 years ago.
That was PAX 2 years ago, and still nothing about that game. And so I think that's the danger, is all that promise they can never then deliver on what they're promising. Some of these companies need just to shut up, get the game done mostly, and then show the game.
Well, I think that's the problem. You and I had a brief conversation before the program tonight, and which I try to avoid at all costs, because then we end up doing a show on the phone, so the only people hearing are the NSA. But we were chatting about this evening, and that's what we've got to get back to, because the whole charade of saying we're going to do
involved in the development.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, you're. I'm not gonna go after this new Just Survive fan remake, but you can already see it unfolding in there, where it's just like certain sections of the community want one thing, other sections want this thing, and then the developers have got to figure out, well, who do we want to prioritize this for? We listen to Group A, then Group B, C, and D, and E and F hate that. But Group A is content. Then when we put it in, Group A actually doesn't like it. So now we're back to square one. We removed the feature, and it's just like,
well,
listening to the community is a terrible
Just
idea.
Survive. I mean, remember how was happening with that remake of the Just Survive aspect, where there was the MMO and they were taking something out, they're putting something in, and that like 3 weeks later they take it out.
Oh yeah, the whole base rebuilds itself system. I mean, that whole
they had
what the
no
hell were
clue
they
what
thinking?
they wanted.
No, and they were
the thing is they need to figure out. They should have figured out what the game they wanted to make was, and shut up about it. Only show people what you've done, not what you're going to do. And that's where these guys, I think, fell into a trap. Show people what you've done, because you know what? Sometimes you find out later, oh, we can't quite do that how we thought we could. And then people get pissed because then they feel like you didn't put a feature in there that you promised.
Yeah.
It's just these guys shoot themselves in the foot constantly.
Well, and that's kind of my concern. That's my concern with any game that is doing this style of, I'm going to call it open development. When you are opening, and here it's a double-edged sword, because we want, as a consumer, well, you and me more as we're going to call us video game journalists, because that's the buzzword. As video game journalists, Brian, we want the transparency so we can talk about it. But then on the flip side, they're transparent. The community doesn't like the words on a text file, so the company changes the direction of the game based on Reddit and Discord comments, and then the game sucks and fails and withers away. And that happens with everything. It happens with every game that's got this open development style. Why didn't we see this with Red Dead Redemption 2? Because it wasn't developed in the open. They shut the hell up about it. I know it's Rockstar and they've got more money than God. I get it. But they did it silently, almost.
But look at what they're doing with their online version, though. They are kind of doing that with their online, and people are hating it.
Yeah. No, you're right. They've screwed up.
They should have held back online and made it and released it when it's polished. You know what? People probably would have liked it and not complained about it so much.
I agree with you completely. And they're doing the same. They are not saved by it. They have the same problem that everybody else does. It doesn't matter how much money they've got. They are they are screwing up their online. And I'm talking about the single player version of the game. No news, no leaks, no nothing but a couple of gameplay trailers beforehand. That was it. And then bam, the game is just out and it's playable. The online, they've done exactly what H1Z1 did. They release features, people bitch and complain about it on the internet. They change the features, the same people bitch and complain about it, and that's it. It's a never-ending cycle. They're never happy with it. So it's like you just got to set your free. And now the community may be right about things, certain features, certain elements of the game, but it's unfortunate that you've just got to pick your poison and stick with it. We're going to do this and follow it. Don't change it because some jackass on Discord.
It creates a hodgepodge of a game. That's
yes, exactly. Which is exactly what we saw with the rebirth of Just Survive a year and a half ago.
Yep.
But now PH is bringing up that Atlas changed things on the community. They were right. The community was right on some of the aspects of Atlas. Now, it's not been deployed yet, so let's not jump too far.
We could have told them day one. The thing is we just saw day one, here is flaws in your mechanics. Very clear flaws. That was not, oh, the community wants this. The community just didn't want mechanics that made it impossible to play, because that's what it ended up being. It made it very difficult to play that game unless you wanted to fit into. Now, if that's what they envisioned, then okay, then you can decide whether or not you play that game. But I think that with Ark and that development team, I think they just don't. Over the years, I've learned that I don't think they really care. They want to make a game, and they don't seem to care whether or not it is always 100% playable. I mean, we saw this same thing in Ark, to where they open up servers and then Chinese players would swarm the server and destroy their player base. It's like, well, why would you do that? They never gave an answer. They never undid it. Well, why did they do it? Who knows? I mean, it didn't make any sense. They're obviously not listening to the players. So, I mean, sometimes it's good if there's a mechanic that's really bad and the community is saying, you know, we don't like this mechanic. You as a development team need to sit back and say, you know what? Let's look at why they don't like this. I mean, that's what a smart development team would do, is they say, why do they not like this? Rather than a knee-jerk reaction, let's figure out what's wrong with it. Okay, because it's allowing players to come in and grief other players. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Okay, let's fix that aspect of it. if they really want to have it to where you can do it, figure out how to prevent people from griefing when they do that. But that's that development team has just never thought that way. Hopefully they've learned their lesson, and maybe this is them actually listening to their community for once and fixing some of those big errors, but they never did it in Arc.
No, you're right. There was a lot of issues with Arc. And I don't have the end all be all solution to this. I don't want to sit here and pretend that I do. But there is clearly an issue with our with where we are currently with game development. Brian, we've got 2.5 pages worth of notes here, and half the games on here are games that are in development. My intention is not to come after games that are in development, because they have to be in development. But it is. I think you are opening yourself up to a lot of problems with this open style of development. And we've seen it. We saw it with H1Z1. We've seen it with Miscreated. The community.
Fallout 76.
Fallout 7. Well,
I mean, they released a halfway polished game, and now they're trying to put the features in it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they didn't do a full release, but I mean, we've seen it. We saw the same thing with Miscreated. We want base building. We want storage. We want this. So they put in some hodgepodge bullshit Steam library storage system, and then this weird base building system. And the community said, "We'll play it. We'll play it. We'll play it." There's 400 people playing it right now. That's the same number we were at before this whole update happened.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's just what it is.
And I think that we're starting to see a transition away from that. We've had many more games released this year, in the past year, than we have during that whole 3-year period of when alpha was the new hot keyword.
Yeah.
When there was no longer a beta, everything went from alpha to release.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think now we're starting to see people appreciating a polished game. I mean, that's one reason that people, they like some of these games that we've seen released in the last couple months, because they're polished. I mean, Black Ops was pretty polished.
It was very polished.
Apex was polished. Realm Royale was polished, and people played it. And so, but before that, you never got games like that were published anymore and actually playable day one. Everything was crashing. Servers were overfilled. Nothing worked right for the first week or two. We saw it in PUBG as well. And I think that since then, people are expecting games to actually release at least within 24 hours of being put on the market. They're supposed to work.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, when you spend money on the game day one, it should work. I mean, I don't think that's now. Like Conan Exiles is an example. Their server host lied. They said that they were ready to handle their server host said they had the infrastructure. It wasn't Ping Perfect. It was somebody else. Said that's their current host, I believe. They said, "Hey, we have the infrastructure to host all these servers." They signed a contract with them and said, we will handle all these servers. Day one, the game came out. They didn't have the infrastructure in place to handle the servers. So they had to literally pull their official servers offline for like 2.5 weeks until they could find a new host.
Yeah,
it was a disaster. But now, that's not the developers' fault. Learned. But it's not the developers signed a contract with a server hosting company that lied. I mean, what do you do about that, Brian?
I mean, all you can do is assume after the fact.
Yeah, but
you still have to deal with all the repercussions of it.
Yeah. So, but it's worked out for Conan. They've got a solid player base now. People don't not play Conan Exiles now because the official servers were down day one, and if they do, that's stupid, because that's not the actual reason you're not interested in playing the game. But I'm just sick of half-finished
There's plenty
products.
of options. Yeah, people just don't want to see. Well, the thing is, we had so many products come out that never were continued developing. I mean, we saw them release, and then you'd go months before another update was put out, and I think that's what people really got tired of seeing. What was the? There was a game that not Blackwick. There was a game that came out, Hurt World.
What about Hurt World?
Hurt World. Remember when that was released originally? And it was. I mean, it was playable, but there wasn't really that much to do. And they've kind of rebuilt that game and now finally have a playable game.
Yeah.
But people aren't willing to go back to it and give it a second chance because they view it still as that original Hurt World where there's nothing really to do.
Miscreated's got the same problem.
Yep. So, all right. Let's see. We got to pick where we go from here because we got 15 minutes.
I do want to read our Rust email at some point. We can do that right.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that right now.
Okay,
and then that way make sure, because I want to make sure we have time for that, because I think that's
perfect. So many weeks ago, I asked the community. I put a call to action out. I said I need to understand Rust. We don't understand Rust. We've tried to get into it and we've failed. So this put a real smile on my face. So I want to thank Dirty, who is the user who submitted this to our website. And I'm just going to go through and read his message now. It says, "Hello, serious Rust player writing in as requested. I have just shy of 1,100 hours, and I'm actually in the process of editing together my first Rust series for my casual YouTube consumption. Dirty, please send us a link to that when that's published." He said, "This story is why I love Rust. Last wipe day, I was roaming around gathering scrap per usual. My group, I'm in a trio, was offline, so I was soloing it. I got into an intense bow fight and eventually downed a guy. Before he bled out, we had a good little talk, and I agreed to return some of his gear because he just seemed genuinely nice. Little did I know this small act of kindness would lead to my best wipe ever. Turns out he was my neighbor and was a part of a very active squad. Our non-aggressive pack turned into a full-blown alliance. What was once two separate bases turned into a massive compound, joined by high exterior stone walls. Our group of two became intertwined, doing everything together. We started to absolutely dominate our area, and slowly our enemies fell. People started to recognize our names, for better or for worse, and we started to gain the attention of the biggest group in the server, about 15 members. As somebody who usually plays alone, this was pretty remarkable and quite awesome. I'm used to being the scavenger rat that cleans up leftover gear after a clan battles it out, but no more. This notoriety eventually led to my half of our group being raided off the server due to our base looking slightly more juicy. My trio decided to call it good for the wipe. Work obligations took over, but we are rebuilding today. It's wipe day with our new friends, and we're seeking revenge. I own pretty much every notable survival game on the market. For me, Rust has ruined everything. I don't get nearly the enjoyment from any other games. I do casually play Apex, but usually only after we've been raided and I'm waiting for the next wipe day. If you want to try Rust but are afraid to, this is a tip to everybody, by the way. If you want to try Rust but are afraid of the tryhards, consider a low-pop community server with group limits. Start to learn the fundamentals and the basics of the game. I personally like to stay with the vanilla with vanilla gather limits, but there are servers with enhanced gather if you'd like to conserve time. I can tell you this, even at 1,100 hours, I'm learning something new every day. The game is incredibly complex, and it rewards those who do their homework and play smart. But at the end of the day, always assume that you'll be rated when you log off. Take your licking and learn from it for next time. I hope to see you on Rust, Dirty." Thank you for the note. I don't think you understand how much I appreciate it, because we don't understand. I mean, it's just so tough to understand some of this stuff. And
but what he's saying sounds so much like Just Survive. Our experience in Just Survive to me.
Well, and I mean, maybe he's got it. Brian, we probably need to take his advice. We don't need to. We are going to take his advice. We are going to find a low pop community server that already exists. We're not going to reinvent the wheel, and we'll just hop on there one weekend and we'll see what happens. Because here is an example, and he's not the only person. There's 20,000 people playing this game. This is not the only story, but this is the example of, I don't know what you'd call it, but just the camaraderie and the fun elements of survival gaming, which he described too.
And banding together. I mean, that the passion that I could hear in his voice talking about that's what we were doing in Just Survive.
Yeah, we would just find small groups, and then the next thing you know, those three guys are now part of our clan.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, look at Barbie. Barbie was supposed to infiltrate us.
Yes, didn't work out.
And then she's like, "Hey, I like these guys. These guys are nice." And then she ended up playing with it. She's still in our Discord today. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
still screaming over or whatever video games we're playing.
Yeah. So I think that is, and Donnie brings it up. He says it's tribalism in gaming, and I think that is what makes a game fun. We had that tribalism in Just Survive that I think we've struggled to find in other games. We did find it for a while in Ark, and that's when we enjoyed Ark.
Well, we were hoping that Atlas would be that. Based on its launch and its concepts, we were like, holy shit, this is it. This is the group-centric game, but it just never took off. It's not that it never
Yep.
took off. It never took off in the way that we'd hoped. It turned out to be these much larger mega groups, very similar to what Ark turned into, with these mega tribes and mega groups kind of running the whole show.
Yeah.
So I mean, here it is. So if you are somebody that owns Rust, like I'm sure a lot of people do, and you want to give it a try, hopping on a public server, according to our friend Dirty here, again, has 1,100 hours in the game, so his word is worth something. Consider a low pop community server. This is the key, with group limits. So you won't have a 30 player clan. You have to pick and choose who you want to actually be in your group, and inactive players can't just sit in your group list. You need to have active players. So yeah, I appreciate the note. If you're listening to this program and you're also a Rust player and you've got either a similar experience or a different experience, I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure this guy put probably 10, 15 minutes into this email writing it all up for us, which we appreciate. But if you've got the time, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Because again, it's a game we always talk about, but it's so hard to get into.
Yep. And I think that the thing is, like he's saying, if we were to break through that initial hump of learning the game and figuring out all the mechanics to where we didn't feel like we're fighting against it, because that's what we've always felt. We're fighting against just crazy other players that are in there constantly just killing us every 10 seconds where you never get a foothold. I think it has a big curve to getting started on it, but from everyone that's played it seriously, they just talk about how rewarding it is.
Fat Broken Ugly says, I met one of my best friends shooting him in the head in Rust. I mean, there you go. That's what makes video gaming so great. So very cool story there. Dirty, thank you. I appreciate it. And any other game, I mean, if you are a hardcore a miscreated player, I think that'd be great. If you're an all-in miscreated player, I'd love to hear from you as well. Anybody that's super into one of these games and we've got it wrong, let us know, because it's hard to be an expert on 2.5 Word doc, 2.5 pages of Word doc games, which is kind of what we are. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
All right. So there's actually a video here. Let me. So there's a game that we were talking a little bit about blockchain. I remember I was saying, like, how are they going to incorporate blockchain into a game? Here's actually a video, and it has talking. But here's a game that has actually integrated blockchain.
You want to play the whole thing?
Game. Yeah, go ahead and play the whole thing.
All right, it's about 5 minutes. Let me get this pulled up here.
If there's a point where we can cut it off,
okay.
I'll say to cut it off. But
hey there, Simon here from Engine, here to go through an incredible development that's been created using the Unity SDK within 1 week of it launching. So this is live on testnet. It's a perfect way for developers to start building, start integrating, start creating without it costing any engine coin. Obviously, once everything goes to mainnet, that's when the items become tradable, and that's when it starts to require engine coin to put inside these items. And as we all know, blockchain economies run alongside the real world economy, so that's what makes these items valuable and useful and powerful. Now, a big part of the setup is linking your blockchain address to your game. That's what gives the game the ability to see your inventory, know that it's yours, make changes to your inventory and send you new items. It's what makes the gaming experience intuitive. And there we have it. Blockchain mode is enabled, which means this game and the blockchain address attached to it are now talking to each other fluidly. Now, I love the look of this game. I love RPGs. I can tell I'm going to play it a lot. Now, this scary skeleton character has just jumped in front of us. We're going to kill him and we're going to take all of his stuff. And let's have a look at that. This sword, it looks awesome. It's called the Epic Sword, apparently. And watch this. We're going to refresh the wallet and we're actually going to watch the Epic Sword land into our blockchain address. Now, this in itself is incredible. For a game developer to be able to integrate blockchain this seamlessly within a few days, it's never been possible before. But let's crank it up a notch. Next, we're going to grab an item and take it to a spellcaster and enchant it. And this is actually incredible because it means that you can level up the item, make it more valuable, make it more useful, powerful. And this kind of concept, because it's on the blockchain, it can actually go between games. Now, as you saw before, it was called the Epic Sword, and now let's refresh. And there we have it. It's now the Epic Sword +1. our actions in the game has affected the reality on the blockchain, and this item is now more useful, more powerful, more valuable. And this is an item that I can own forever, I can trade, I can make a profit from. So we're just one step away from my actions in the game affecting my real life. But let's take it one step further and have a look at how this talented developer is actually implementing crafting into this whole process. So we're just going to grab this gold sack here, and it's going to give us the legendary essence. So of course this is a crafting material. We'll take that to a crafter and convert that into something special. First, let's just double check the wallet, make sure it's landed in there. And of course, there it is. Right next to the Epic Sword +1 that we enchanted before. Protected safely within the impenetrable Engine blockchain wallet. Now, as you can see, there's also a bunch of other items that have not been linked to the blockchain as of yet. This actually speaks to the incredible flexibility of the Engine platform. If a game developer just wants to start off by integrating one item, they can. If they want to integrate all of their items and create a whole blockchain-based economy, they can. It's completely up to them based on their gameplay and what's going to create the best outcomes based on their specific circumstances. Now, I know for a fact that this developer in particular is going to take it to a whole other level. He's told me some of the things that he has planned, and they are absolutely mind-blowing. He already has 64 square kilometers of gameplay mapped out. But what really made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up was his description of what he plans to do with this blockchain integration. It's literally something that is not possible without blockchain. It's going to blow your mind. So as you can see here, we've pressed the button. The legendary essence should be disappearing from our inventory and our blockchain wallet, and it will be replaced with the new item that we're creating. And it's also worth noting that this item is decentralized, which means that other games can choose to support it, which means that I play this game, I win this item, I can take it into other worlds, I can use it there. It's incredible. And there we have it. We've got the fire infused staff, and the legendary essence is gone. And all of this has been achieved within 1 week of the Unity SDK being launched. That just blows my mind. There's no telling how many other talented game developers are using these tools right now. But what we do know is that the first ones to go to market are going to have the competitive edge, and I believe we're seeing dynasties in the making right now.
All right. There you go.
So, I mean, just to kind of explain what people were seeing, this would allow for, because it's kind of like what we've seen. Let's look at Miscreated, because Miscreated is doing not a blockchain version of this, but with their being able to deposit items into the Steam inventory. They have the kiosk system where you can take an item, you upload it to Steam, then it allows you to maybe take those items into another server by downloading them from Steam again. That is actually a similar version to what this is, but what this would really be is a non single platform dependent version of this, because you would have a blockchain inventory, I guess you could say, that counts across all the servers. So the servers would really come down to one economy, and your items would be available to you from server to server, and they would be using this blockchain to be able to have that master inventory list.
And from game to game. You could have
from
one
game to
wallet.
game, that they could be in charge of, okay, how do you get items into the blockchain?
Yeah.
And have a little bit of protection against people trying to dupe and things like that, or falsely put information into, what's supposed to be in there. Just similar to what you see with Bitcoin. I mean, people can't just create Bitcoin out of thin air or say. Now, there is one downside, and Bitcoin has this exact same problem. Whoever has the most nodes on the network can actually send false information. And this is something that has happened to Bitcoin networks, is that people that are trying to trick the system are able to get the magic, what it's like 51% of control of being the 51% of the computers.
Yeah.
And they're able to put a false transaction into there. With really small games, this would be a concern. is, let's say you have 100 people. Well, it's not that hard to maybe throw up 51 false ones if you think there's a real economy there. But for major games, or if they have a way that they can kind of control it, that would be very difficult to do. And so there are downsides. This is not a foolproof system, but it will be interesting to see, like with that game, what kind of things can they think up? Will this change how the whole economy of, especially with all these different launchers and maybe different systems of some games are being played online, allowing you to have kind of a master inventory between them that isn't tied to a specific platform or to a specific company. It's kind of weird to think about right now because you always figure, well, a certain game company is controlling all this. Well, let's say there's modded servers that don't want to have anything to do with the original company. Are you trusting the server owner of that particular server to be in charge of your inventory? I mean, if they're really worth a lot of money, do you trust them? I mean, there are those questions that this would be somewhat of an answer to, but it's not a foolproof system. So I think that people still need to be careful. Don't throw a bunch of money into inventory items because you think that it's foolproof, and you're not possibly going to lose that money now. That's not how it works.
Transfer your Steam library into Bitcoin or into cryptocurrency. Crypto inventory.
I'm going to sell my house to buy a cryptocurrency because it can't go wrong.
No, sell your house to buy in-game items on this game built on Unity.
It sounds like a perfect idea.
Your wife would be all
anyway,
over.
so that's the first one. The first games that are actually really
that's neat
using the blockchain technology, because we had mentioned that a week or two ago, or last week actually. We mentioned that Unity had released the API to be able to do this, and that's the first game that I saw that actually was using it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Is there anything else? Oh, man, there's so much.
Yeah, we didn't get to any of it. We spent too much time on Google and Apple. So,
okay, because there's one thing I wanted to cover, but we will have to do it next week, and hopefully not a bunch of crazy news comes out next week.
Why? What do we need to cover?
Well, that thing we don't need to cover. It would be a conversation all of its own, and I don't want to go down that rabbit trail right now with 2 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
So let's mention the things that if people want to go check out our show notes on the website, they can go check out. Fallout 76.
Okay, yeah.
Huh?
I was just gonna say, let's just read through all the titles, I guess.
So Fallout 76 put out an update. They have their Wild Appalachia, which actually changes. They have a PvP mode in there now, which is closer to a BR as far as the mechanics. They actually changed it to where it's specifically a PvP mode. So that's in the new Fallout 76. So perhaps if you haven't opened that up for a while, run the update on it and give it a try. I think that came out today. Let's see. Bethesda actually released. Okay, so one thing Bethesda put out a notice saying, hey, we're pleased to announce that Rage 2, Wolfenstein Youngblood, Wolfenstein, Cyberpilot, and Doom Eternal will be released on Steam and their launcher. So, of course, they got to put that in there. They'll also be bringing Fallout 76 to Steam later this year.
Wow.
And today, in celebration of something, they're giving away a free copy of a game. So we have that in our Discord if people want to jump in there.
Oh, nice.
And I guess that's being a shill for the Discord, but I'll put it in the deals section. I think it's through the weekend. So for a couple more days, there's a free game that you can get through the Bethesda launcher.
Why is Survival Shield X2 in our deals channel?
Oh, I figured you'd appreciate that.
All right.
It's not a leak, so I figured that'd be
good.
All right. They have Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight came out with a new update, 2.6 today.
They reworked the matchmaking. There was an issue with the last matchmaking patch, and they've fixed some of their issues. So,
I think they reverted a few things too to be like the old system because I think people didn't like how some of the things were.
Yeah, coming to Switch here in the summer.
Cool. Apex, they did put out an announcement talking about some of the crashes and things that they've actually changed for reporting so they can track down crashes more easily. And there's a post that we'll have in our notes that kind of explains in layman's terms how that works. They're also doing hardware bans, which is one thing that they've been doing. So all their bans aren't just temporary bans, they're hardware bans. Let's see. Fortnite came out with a new update. 8.11. Moons of Madness you didn't bring up. Overwatch has a new update that they put out. They actually have a new character as well.
Oh.
So there's a support character in there if you want to check it out. Sea of Thieves came out with an update this past week. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 came out with an update this past week. Realm Royale came out with an update this past week. Outlaws was a game that recently released here in the last 2 weeks, and they put out 5 updates, I think. So I have those listed in there. Atlas has been putting out updates, but we're still, I think, waiting on that big release.
We are.
I mean, everything's got kind of small patches up until that big release. Black Death put out a hot fix this week. Zera, he put out an update after this last playtest, 0.2.8. ROE put out 4 updates this past week, and one of them was actually a pretty big update. New characters, new guns, fairly big update. Arc put out a small update this week. We Happy Few put out a pretty big update, actually, and they're putting out some new game modes. So kind of the original survival mode that their alpha was, where it was just kind of you could run around and do stuff. They put out a version like that, and then they put out another arcadey style version. Hurtworld put out an update this past week. Black Wake put out an update this past week. PUBG, one thing they're starting to do is they're putting expiration dates on their gift codes now. That's something that they weren't doing before. Those codes lasted forever. They're now putting expiration dates on them so that they don't sit out there forever, and then someone, they actually can keep an inventory of what's out there.
Yeah. I don't like
they
that,
had their yeah, well, I mean, it's easier for them if they're trying to balance their economy of what it is. I don't think they should make economies on skins. They're celebrating their 2nd year, and there's also a video, but it is all in Korean, so we will skip that for now.
Oh, really? You don't want to translate that one live?
I could read the whole thing. It is, but the whole thing is in Korean. It is the CEO speaking in Korean, the whole thing. So I'll skip that for now.
All right.
They had their update 27 on the test server, but hopefully next week they'll release that. It'll be good that we skipped it, because I always hate that we then are having to figure out if there's something different they did in the actual live test. But they did put out update 27 for their test server. And then we can talk about the band thing next week, since that's not specific time. And then I have a couple of games in there that we'll bring up in future, just kind of games I'm watching that are going to be releasing here soon.
And one of them is
in development.
One of them is, I'm just going to mention the name of it, Jaws of Extinction, which our friend Gadlaw tweeted at us a couple weeks ago. So if there is
and that's the one that I have some opinions on that I want to dive deep into if we don't have crazy news next week.
Yeah. So I didn't actually know that. But my point was to bring that up was, if you see a game that is out there, don't assume that we know about it. Shoot us a tweet, ping Brian or I a private message in Discord, whatever. Get in touch with us. Let us know. Send us a link, because Gadlaw tweeted us this like 2 weeks ago, and it's been rolling in the notes, but we just haven't had a chance to get to it. But we will. So if you don't assume that we know.
And so that's probably going to be like a 10-15 minute discussion of something about that game that I want to discuss, but I don't want to go. We can't discuss it right now because I just don't even want to bring it up. We'll get to that hopefully next week.
I want to thank our friend Big Woody Sauce for rating us. We've never been rated before on the show with his viewers. Thank you very much, Ross. We appreciate it. So thank you for that. All right, Brian. Apex Legends is our game of the week. I will be out of town. You will probably be out of town.
Well, I'm taking my wife on a date to celebrate.
Well, I was just going to try to give you some cover, but it's fine if you'd like to say.
Well, last week I was playing it during Game of the Week, and she wasn't very happy with me that I was playing Game of the Week on our anniversary.
Well, it sucks to be her. I mean, it's a Game of the Week.
She didn't tell me when she was coming home. That's her fault.
Exactly.
Right?
And then I was left alone with Joe getting coffee every 5 minutes playing Conan, listening to like random things explode in the background. Who knows what was happening? But I would like to say for the record, I was there.
Yes, Nick was there. So I'll be taking her out. She doesn't know, but I'll be taking her out.
I'm gonna tell her.
You can. I guess you can. I got to tell her at some point to make sure she's home from work in time.
Oh, jeez. All right. We're off the rails here. Again, I do want to thank Chris over at the H1Z1 Fan Remake for pinging his group and letting them know that we were going to be chatting about his game tonight. We appreciate it, and we'll bring him up to date. We'll bring you guys up to date on that. And then again, our friend our friend Dirty for coming in with the Rust note. We do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. One more quick thing before we do current players. Now this has failed me. I want to thank Saul Greatman, Johnny Find, and Judd, all for hitting us with the resubscriptions here on Twitch. So thanks for that, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
All right, so I guess that's all the news. And if that is the case, then it's time for everybody's favorite segment on the show.
Favorite part of the show.
Current players, where we talk about games and who is currently playing them. Ark Survival Evolved, currently playing 25,661. Your 24-hour peak, 39,209, with a 7-day peak of 52,236. Moving on over to Rust, which has got more players than Ark right now. 29,847 people currently playing that. The 24-hour peak, 45,037. That's significantly higher than Ark's. And the 7-day peak, 64,502. Really solid numbers over there. Let's talk about Miscreated real quick. Currently playing 393 players. The 24-hour peak, 648, with a 7-day peak of 924. How about PUBG? Currently playing 114,708. Your 24-hour peak, 766,534, with a 7-day peak of 889,844. And finally, as we await their patch, that's why these numbers are a little low, Atlas, currently playing 1,766. Your 24-hour peak is 2,131, with a 7-day peak of 3,046. And that is those are your current players. Those are the games and the people that are currently playing them. I was blown away. We haven't looked at Rust's numbers in probably 4 weeks. Maybe longer than that. The time is irrelevant. I don't know how long anything ago was, but it's been a while since we've looked at it. And I mean, those are very respectable numbers that they're pulling in. I mean, they are well within.
They've always been very consistent. I mean, there's people love that game. It's one of our more consistent games over the past however many years.
I mean,
playing it all the time.
Them and Ark are well within the top, are always within the top 15 being the top 15 games currently being played on Steam. Both of those games are just always up there. It's pretty incredible. And PUBG is too, of course, but in terms of survival games.
And PUBG has a lot of swing though to it.
It does. But it's still got 120,000 people.
Still consistent though. Even the American audience is
it's always 120, 140, 110,000 people during this show. It's always the same.
Yep.
So there you go.
Very good. All right, we ready to go on to tip of the week?
Yeah. Sorry, I was reading Russ's note in the chat.
Tip of the week's where we go through and either I'll give a general gaming tip or one for a specific game. And this one is going to be on, well, it's on GTA. We'll say it that way. So this is tip of the week. All right. Well, right now, role-playing in GTA seems to be a pretty hot thing. And perhaps, watching some of these streamers play, you figure you want to get involved. And so one thing that you'll need to do most likely is install a mod called 5M. Yes. It's not exactly a
Your role
Western
playing.
survival as Nick is. Oh, yeah, this is my role playing a cowboy. Thank you. One thing you'll need to do first is to find a community that has an opening on their server, because a lot of these communities are fairly strict. And you'll have to actually apply to the server and then be whitelisted to be able to join it. Because, I mean, you've played enough online games, you know that if you go through and let everybody play, you'll just get a bunch of trolls. So what they do is actually are very careful about who joins these servers. Once you get on there, though, you'll need to go on and have a certain number of mods. One thing 5M does is actually will automatically start downloading those mods that are required by that server. And so if you install the 5M software, it will download them, and then you should be good to go for that. But you will need to look over the server rules, make sure that you're following whatever, because they'll have pretty specific rules. Role playing is very much a very many rules in it as far as what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to act, what you're supposed to say, not say. You're supposed to be talking as the character,
Milady?
not talking out of turn. A lot of things going on. Yes, actual role playing, and they're very strict about it because it only takes one person not doing it right uh, to kind of mess it up for everyone else. And so, but one thing also, a lot of people, they've been interested in hosting their own servers and doing that. I think you'll find that out of the box, it doesn't have everything that you would think. It does take a certain amount of custom coding, possibly configuring of mods to get something working like what you expect GTA to be. A lot of the features are turned off, and then you kind of add and build your experience from there. So I do know we have some people in our community that are doing some programming for that, interested in it. You guys could work together. But if you are looking at doing it, it does have its own set of programming. It is somewhat difficult. So maybe you should jump in, play for a little while, and then figure out if you want to try your own community first. So, but yeah, check it out. 5M. I think it's 5M. The letter, so the number 5M dash net or .net. Actually, no, it's 5M spelled out. FIVEM.net, and that's the software that you would need. And it'll be what most role playing. I don't know that there's anything else that people would be using to do it, but that's pretty much what all the role players are using. So check it out. That's tip of the week.
You do need to own GTA 5, by the way. This is not.
You do need to, yeah. It just doesn't give you a free GTA 5, so you need to make sure you have that.
Yeah. And PH is saying that it is very hard to get into a lot of the servers.
No, I think he's talking about Gmod's Harry Potter RP, which we did have a fun time playing one time.
You were all in.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, on Gary's mod, I did for a period of time. I mean, it technically was considered role playing, but like, it wasn't that serious. I think it was called PERP. PERP is what it was called. And there were just roles like firefighter and ambulance. People would get killed, and you'd have to just go pick them up. It wasn't that hardcore, but I guess everybody's into the GTA. All the big streamers were doing this last week, and GTA would have like 500,000 viewers live on Twitch, something like that.
Well, there's a guy who does calls to scammers.
Oh,
Cat Boga.
Cat Boga, yeah.
Cat Boga or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've actually watched him for a while. And so I watched him on Twitch in general. And then he's just started streaming as that old lady character.
Oh, hey
Edna.
there.
So he does, because it's got the voice changer and everything. So he started role playing. So I caught like his first ones that he was doing of that. And he's been role playing, and he goes through and he says, "I'm gonna get justice." And he's walking around, he's just playing as her perfectly.
Yes, for people that don't know, this guy calls scammers back as an old lady, and has like virtual machines running, and he allows them to log into it, and he screws around with them, and he's made
talks about her grandson. He just strings them along for like an hour.
Yeah, he pretty
wasting their time,
and he's turned it into his full-time job because he streams all the time, I guess. Yeah. So it's got to be his full-time job.
Well, and now he's making a lot of money off of this GTA role playing too. So he does that during the day, and then at night he'll do GTA, and he's got tons of people. Like he's probably one of the better role players because.
That's what he does.
His character's convincing yet funny the whole time. And so he does a really good job. Is it Cat Boga or Kit Boga?
I think it's Kit Boga. Kit Boga. KITBOGA. Look him up.
He's a part of the Prune Gang. They're all old.
We have to go. After you just said that, I can't be associated with you and this program. Actually, do the game giveaway first.
All right, so let's go ahead and we will.
That was the cringiest thing you've ever said on this program.
That's what it is. That's what they call it.
I understand what they call it, but I'm just saying it was very cringy the way you're like, Prune Gang.
They're part of the Prune Gang, so they go around, Prune Gang.
Oh my God. I'm going to kill somebody.
All right, so congratulations, Fat Broken Ugly.
Oh, Jesus.
You have won a copy of Atlas, so I will send you a Steam key, and hopefully next week we'll be a part of the Prune Gang too. We can get some RP in.
Okay, stop saying that. You're triggering
for
me.
life.
Okay.
All right. If you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, hashtag Prune Gang, and also go to my website, biteoftech.com. Make sure you go check out our website, infectionpodcast.com, and on there on the upper right, join our Discord server. It's a great place to submit news. We have different things we talk about throughout the week. If you want to join us for some games that we'll be playing. Also, we have our show notes. We had a lot of things that had notes on there. Maybe there's a game that you'd like to follow. We'll have links to all those updates in our show notes and all our different audio formats. Normally, next week, we'll try to get the Steam notification actually pop up. And we'll get on there like 5 minutes earlier, and it'll be okay. So
What happened to Mango Gang, Brian? You scumbag! You're cheating.
I would rather do Mango Gang. It has the same effect on you.
Cheating on the mangoes with the prunes.
I don't like prunes. I'll stick with the mangoes.
So you're gonna start your own group.
Delicious. I need to go Thursday and pick up another bag.
All right. Thanks, Brian. As always, we'll see you next week.
Yep. See ya.
Oh boy, we are way off the deep end. Well, my name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. Of course, you can visit our website. It is infectionpodcast.com. Go check out our show notes. We missed a lot of news. I got it. Apex is our game of the week. Of course, missed any portion of the show, you can check out our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.